Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lion's Den. My name is Daniel. I decided to look at, with all the current things going on, with the riots, the protests, the police brutality, the Black Lives Matter movement, I wanted to dig into these things and try to use objectivity, statistics, analytics to dive deeper. There's a famous phrase going out, it's been out for a while, of facts don't care about feelings. And I'm a firm believer of that. The more objective we can be, the less emotional we can be, the easier it is for all of us to actually come to real solutions and not react with an overwhelming amount of force. So I'm going to be going over a few different things in this video. I'll be quoting my sources. I'll leave my sources at the end of the video. I do have notes to help just keep me on track. This is my microphone. Here we go. So the first set of topics I want to look at are the correlation between Marxism, Karl Marx, and the three heads of the Black Lives Matter movement, the three women that are the leaders. So Marxism wants to discredit capitalism and eliminate the concept of classes, lower, middle, and upper class. It doesn't believe in private ownership. It prefers co-op ownership mentality. The problem with that is people that own their own business or their own brand or their own products don't feel that other people are entitled just because they're there. Most people want to keep what they earn, or they want to share it with people that have helped them get there. There's already examples of Marxist countries and communist countries like the People's Republic of China, Republic of Cuba, Socialist Republic of China. Most people in America that I know that are busting their hump every day would not want to go there. They want to be able to try to live and seek out their concept of the American dream. There's a belief in Marxism that social institutions like churches, prisons, and schools were created to maintain division between the powerful and powerless. At their core root, they were not. Churches are meant to be a place of worship for the rich and for the poor. Prisons were designed to help maintain order, get the criminals off the street. Schools were designed to teach, obviously. Of course, there can be corruption in an institution. As a whole, again, I don't believe that there's corruption in the institutions as a whole. I think that there's certain churches that are bad, or schools that aren't teaching the right things, or prisons that a lot are privately owned. You can look into the Clinton administration for that. But when there's private ownership in prisons, they're incentivized by having people go to prison. So there's people that are in prison for really petty crimes that shouldn't be there. I believe that that could use reform. But again, overall, if we didn't have prisons, people would just be on the streets. Didn't have churches, people wouldn't have a place of worship. My church up the street, when the first bit of the pandemic broke out, a lot of the attendants were on the street passing out toilet paper and things like that, hand sanitizer. These are normal people that took time out of their day because they were trying to do something positive, you know? Karl Marx himself, born in Germany, a new revolution is possible only in consequence of a new crisis. So we're kind of either on the verge of a revolution, or depending on what city you live in, you might be part of people thinking they're in a revolution. An issue with him, though, is people have wondered, or some people believe, that he was a racist. He used terms constantly and frequently like Negroes, the Slavs, the Jews, the Chinese. These are pretty abrasive terms, especially given the wrong or the right context. People don't want to hear these terms. Karl Marx would also racialize skin-colored groups, ethnicities, nations, and social classes. He would say that some are endowed with superior or inferior character traits. So he's already labeling people based on the color of your skin, your social class, your ethnicity, or your nation. It's kind of racist to me. It seems racist. Now let's look at the three female leaders of the Black Lives Matter. Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi. Alicia Garza, as of 2019, her net worth is $1 million. Her title currently is an activist. She's considered one of the richest activists in California. Her degree was in sociology and anthropology, and a professional in those two fields makes anywhere from $63 to $73K a year. So she's worth $1 to $5 million. Where'd all that money come from? Patrisse Cullors, who literally said, as a quote, "Her and Alicia are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. They want to get Trump out." they have a connection to Eric Mann, who has had communist ties since 1975. He was a former agitator to the Weather Underground Domestic Terroristic Organization. One of their quotes was, "It was an urban experiment that focused on black and Latino communities with deep historical ties to pro-communist resistance to the U.S. empire." So he was involved in a group like that since 75. So clearly this guy's not with the flag, and yet he still lives here. Opel Tomette has been quoted saying she wants to end capitalism. Well, now, if they're working for a Marxist/communist organization in Black Lives Matter, why are they selling swag for $15, $20, and $30 for a face mask or a coffee mug or a t-shirt? If you've done any wholesale buying of a t-shirt or a coffee mug or a face mask, they're pennies to the dollar. They're making quite a bit of money from this movement in a capitalistic venture for something that's so anti-capitalism. The next part I want to look at, staying with Black Lives Matter, is the website. Let's follow the money a little bit. So, blacklivesmatter.com. Big tab that says donate. You click donate, gives you the option to donate whatever you want. It has some preset increments there. But if you look at the fine print for the donation, there's a big, all caps, actblue.com. I think it's number 2 on the fine print. You dive into actblue.com, and according to greatgameindia.com, these are the top donations that your Black Lives Matter movement money through ActBlue is going to. And I'm going to show this slide. You can see it's not going to black communities. It's not going to black schools or anything like that to help directly the black community. Why do all the Democrats need the money so bad? They're already millionaires and billionaires. They don't need Black Lives Matter money for the movement. It's being shipped to the DNC. That would make me very angry if I feel like I'm putting money into something for a cause and it's not going to the cause, it's just going to wealthy politicians. So the next part of it is, let me refer back to this, some of the quotes on their website. They constantly refer to people involved in the movement as comrades, and that term, there's direct links to communism. Again, it's just painting the picture that Black Lives Matter as a movement is a Marxist and communist movement itself at its core. A lot of Americans that work their butt off don't want to be involved in any of that. They want to dismantle cisgender privilege. So if someone doesn't know what that is, I'm going to loosely define it. A cisgender is someone like me. I am a straight, white male. I believe my biology is true. I was born with male genitalia, so I am a man. That would make me cisgender. They think that they need to stop the violence among black trans women because they're being victims of homicide at a disproportionate rate, at 4.3 times more likely to be involved in homicide. So I wanted to look into that specifically. According to transequality.com, 40% of black trans women have admitted to being involved in sex work. Admitted. Now, the other 60%, we don't know, but we'll just use that 40% because that's the number we have. If you go to pubmed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov, it says sex workers, any sex worker, is 60 to 100% more likely to be a victim of homicide or a violent crime. 2019, per HRC.org, 27 trans women were killed. And it says the majority are black. And again, according to Black Lives Matter, black trans women are being killed at a disproportionate rate versus other trans people, or just other people in general. So if the majority are being killed at a higher rate, and 40% admit to being involved in sex work, 40% are already putting themselves in harm's way. So my question is, given that Black Lives Matter as a website doesn't go into this at all, they just say they're being killed at a disproportionate rate, why aren't they really digging into it and saying, we need to help these black trans women find better career work, better career choices, as opposed to letting them get involved in sex work where they're probably going to be killed because of what they're doing. Not because they're black and trans, but because of the choice of career that they're choosing. That's something that, again, when you read it at a quick glance, you're like, oh, black trans women are being killed so much more often. But that shows you right there. It's because of what they're choosing to do for work. The next part I wanted to look at was these concepts of systemic racism and white privilege. I'll be quoting from SallyMae.com, scholarships.com, Statista.com, BusinessInsider.com, Google.com. So, as a white male, if I need a scholarship for college, there is not a scholarship that I could find specifically for a white male. Now, there are definitely scholarships out there that are general oriented, that you can apply for, you can write a paper for, and anyone has the opportunity to get that scholarship. But again, specifically white male, no such thing. If you look at African Americans alone, there are over 5 million scholarships, over $24 million in value. That's specifically for African Americans. So would that be a form of African American privilege? Think about it. There's also scholarships for, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, things like that. Now we can look at why that might be there, or we can say there's things in place for people of color to be able to get ahead in life and stop blaming the concept of white privilege. If we look at the concept of affirmative action, it's clearly in place to protect minorities and women from being discredited from getting a job or discriminated against from getting a job based on their color or their gender. The problem with that, as a whole, that's good. We shouldn't, discriminate against anyone based on that. They should only be hired based on their qualifications. Maybe experience, education comes into play in this sense, but to use color or section, that's just silly because you're going to potentially eliminate good workers. The flip side, though, is now companies have quotas to hire a certain amount of women or people of color. You could potentially be at risk for hiring someone less qualified because you're hitting a quota versus hiring the most qualified person to begin with. Again, I think it's dumb when the application asks you what your color is or what your gender is. Obviously, there's specific examples like, I'm a guy, I shouldn't be wanting to work at Hooters. But overall, if you're wanting to be a teacher or you want to be a business professional or whatever it is, that really shouldn't matter. I think to be protective and not use affirmative action and just hire based on qualifications is where we should go to, and not assume that there's all this privilege in the background when there's things in place to protect against that. I feel like if people really being discriminated against because of these things, there would be a lot more lawsuits in place, but there's not, because there's too many policies in place now to protect people of minority or gender or whatever it is. The next thing I took a look at, I wanted to see how many black billionaires there were. We use that as a kind of a baseline. So currently there's 6 black billionaires. Obviously there's more white billionaires. The disproportion will be something that I'll circle back to in the near end of the video, and I'll explain why I think there's disproportion. Jay-Z, Kanye, MJ, Oprah, David Stewart, Robert F. Smith. Now, Robert F. Smith is known for philanthropy, which is amazing. Kanye West does a lot, as far as I know, for Chicago. A lot of these people, I know Oprah does a lot of stuff for communities. So, a lot of them are helping with communities. That's great. But Jay-Z also has a $70 million private art collection. The beauty of capitalism in America is that you can make all the money in the world you want and still have a $70 million private collection of art. Now, by no means would I tell him how to spend his money, because I wouldn't want him telling me how to spend my money. But again, what could that $70 million do to help a black community? I mean, that's kind of an art collection. Again, buy what you want to buy, but is that necessary? I mean, the art behind me was a gift, and I believe it came from like a Ross or something, so it's not like that's an expensive piece of art. But again, it's my money, it's how I want to spend it. Beauty of America. I looked at the NBA. I'm a big basketball fan. As of 2019, 80.7% of the actual players were people of color. So I dug into that, and I looked at the top 10 richest NBA players. They're all currently black. So you could say, and people have said to me, well, there's not enough black ownership. That's where the disproportion comes in. Well, currently there's only one black owner, Michael Jordan, and before him it was Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson was also black. But, with all the money currently in the NBA with some of these players, why aren't more players wanting to be owners, or why aren't more owners encouraging? I don't think we should blame the system, because there's clearly money in black people's pockets and minorities' pockets to buy. I think maybe that's just not a career path they want. Or maybe they see Michael Jordan hasn't been that great of an owner. His teams aren't very good. Maybe they don't think it's a good way to carry on their legacy. We had a black president. The House of Representatives consists of 56 black members. There's 313 white people. Again, you could say it's disproportionate, but I'll explain my theory on why it's disproportionate later on. So I think it's healthy to deny these buzz terms like white privilege and systemic racism. I'm not saying we should deny racism at all. There's definitely racism in the world. There's definitely racism in America. But to say an entire system is racist or an entire color is just privileged, you're already stating that people that aren't part of that are just inherently inferior. And I don't believe that to be true. I know some very successful people of color, some very successful white people. I also know some very unsuccessful white people. I mean, a lot of it with America is just put your nose to the grindstone and get to work. Not everyone's going to have the opportunities as everyone else, but the fact you have the opportunity is important. I met a gentleman. I was out at a bar with my best friend, and we met this guy, and he came in and ordered a beer and sat down with a buddy of his. And these women were checking out his car. He had a really nice car. So he kind of was laughing, and we're like, yeah, man, it's a pretty nice car. And he's like, yeah. He's like, so I do this. He's a black dude. He's in his 50s. He started his own business, and he was so proud to talk about it. He's like, I was a truck driver for 8 years. I got sick of working for somebody. I took a chance on myself. I started this business. Now I have 3 different offices. My 2 daughters work for me, and they run each office. He's like, I've never been a victim. He's like, I could hold any circumstance and say, oh, because I was black, or oh, because I was this. He said, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm paraphrasing it, he said, if I were to blame other people, I wouldn't be here today. You know, he said, you make it what you make it. I know some very awesome circumstances where people have had a rough deal of hand, and they've made the best out of it. You know, Morgan Freeman paraphrased by saying, if you don't like your situation, you can get on a bus and go somewhere else and try to start anew. Plenty of people of all backgrounds have had rough patches in their life. You know, I've had some things happen to me. I know people that have had, you lose a father, a mother, you lose a brother, a sister. You may get laid off for no good reason, but you got to overcome it. You got to use it as a point of strength and make it a challenge to overcome. Again, I've also heard this, that if white privilege exists and you believe that and you're not white, then you're saying because you're not white, you're already inferior. And I don't think that's true. I think your work ethic, your awareness of your surroundings and things like that are far more important than just the color of your skin. So I wanted to look at where I believe the reform should really come from. So my next little segment is going to be quoting from the USCensusBureau.com, towncharts.com, and prisonpolicy.org. So I started by looking at the top 5 dangerous cities in 2020. Detroit, Memphis, Birmingham, Baltimore, St. Louis. First correlation, they're all currently Democratic, and they've all been Democratic for over 30 years. Detroit goes far, 62. They've been Democratic. Memphis since 82. Birmingham since 63. Baltimore since 67. St. Louis since 53. I looked at the single motherhood rate for these cities. The U.S. average is 23.7%. Now, this is as of 2017. That's the most current numbers I could get, but 23.7 U.S. average. In Detroit, 59.2. Memphis, 50.1. Birmingham, 60.1. Baltimore, 51.7. St. Louis, 46%. I looked at the poverty rates. So Detroit was 36%, Memphis was 26%, Birmingham 27.2, Baltimore 18.9, St. Louis, I think it's in the mid-20s. It got cut off my notes. Then I looked at the top incarceration rates per densely populated cities. So they have to be densely populated for them to get into this number. Detroit was number 4. Memphis was number 10. Birmingham was number 6. St. Louis was number 26. Those are all pretty high numbers. Now, I didn't mention Baltimore. They weren't on that list. The closest city to them, Washington County, was number 37. Now, these are out of cities, not out of states. So those are pretty high numbers. The next thing I looked at were the cities with the lowest graduation rates out of high school. So Detroit was 38%, didn't graduate. Baltimore, 41%, didn't graduate. Cleveland, 34%, Indianapolis, 31%, Atlanta, 44%, Los Angeles, 44%. Percent of their high school students did not graduate. These are from neighborhoodscout.com, usnews.com. The highest graduation states for high school, all at 94%, all Republican, Iowa, Kentucky, North Dakota. I wanted to look at abortion. I wanted to see the highest percentages of abortions per state. New York, 31.4. Jersey, 32.2. Maryland, 29.4. California, 22%. Connecticut, 25.3%. All Democratic. Washington, D.C., a city, 37.1%. Abortion. Pregnancies aborted. This is from abort73.com. Looked at Chicago. It's infamous for black-on-black crime. Laura Lightfoot, the current Democrat. It's been Democratic since 1933. There's a scale that the internet uses to determine how safe or how violent a city is. 100, if you are a 100, you are very safe. If you are a 1, you are extremely dangerous. Chicago is a number 7, so they're very close to a 1. If you look at, I'm going to look at the murder rate versus the U.S., the rape rate versus the U.S., the assault rate versus the U.S., and the robbery rate versus the U.S. Murder, 0.21 versus 0.05. Rape, 0.67 versus 0.43. Robbery, 3.59 versus 0.86 for the U.S. Assault, 5.66 versus 2.47. George Floyd, his incident happened in Minneapolis. They are currently Democratic. They have been Democratic since 78. I looked at the top welfare states. It's very hot in my townhouse, by the way. That's why I'm wiping sweat. Out of the top 10 welfare states, 7 out of 10 were Democratic. New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, Minnesota, New Mexico, Delaware, Oregon. All Democratic. The 3 Republican were Alaska, Maine, and Kentucky. Again, 70% though is very high. I wanted to see if there was a correlation with these violent cities that the states they were attached to, the involvement in church. Maybe they're not going to church. Maybe they've lost God, or maybe they don't believe in God, whatever it was. So I looked at the church attendance rate per state, per city. Michigan was 27, so they're kind of middle of the road. Tennessee was 3rd, so they're very churchgoer. They go to church often, excuse me. Alabama was 1st. Maryland was 22nd. Missouri was 15. So to me, that means there's no correlation. It doesn't mean that there's a lack of church. My next part, I'm going to look at the last 4 presidents. Good barometer because 2 of them are Republican, 2 of them are Democratic. So the 2 statistics I look at were the crime rate during their administration and the unemployment rate during their administration. Now, these are average numbers because obviously Trump hasn't been in office as long as the 3 prior to him, but it's a collective average, so that way it's a fair barometer. The highest crime rate was during the Clinton administration. The number was 625.8. You also, like I said, if you look at the imprisonment rate and the policies that affected privatized prisons during the Clinton administration, they were terrible. This dude wanted to have prisons full. You look at the lowest crime rate, Donald Trump, 385.35. Unemployment. The highest was Barack Obama, 6.3% unemployment. Now this also affects minorities. The unemployment, the lowest, Donald Trump, 3.73. He's also on record for having the lowest unemployment rate for minorities, black people, Mexicans, etc. You don't have to like Trump. That's the beauty of America. You don't have to like him. You don't have to vote for him. Some context, I did not vote for him the previous election. I'm not a big government guy. I think the government's corrupt as a whole. That's a whole nother video. But this isn't me saying Trump's the man. This is me saying the numbers will tell you he has been the most efficient when it comes to unemployment and the lowest crime rate. These numbers came from fred.stlouisfed.org and statista.com. So, to circle back, the correlation for all this has been democratically ran cities and states. When I look at maybe why there's not more black billionaires, or maybe why there's not more black NBA franchise owners, or more black NFL team owners, or things, just those are examples. I would blame, again, the policies in place in some of these cities, retaining people from being able to develop or want to have these opportunities to become business owners or CEOs or whatever it was. I'm not blaming the system, I'm blaming the policies of the Democratic Party that have been in these cities and states for 30 plus years on a lot of these places. I think we, as a whole, should not worry about the system or privilege, and we should look at reform on the Democratic Party, especially in the cities I mentioned. We as a society are very instant gratification driven. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all these things, it's about how many likes you can get, how many people are following you. And that's a problem because we do that for our social media impact, but we also do that with life. We see a tagline or a catchphrase, or we see a headline and we react. We don't dig into it. I think the media is very good at playing on people's heartstrings and using buzzwords to really get people upset. The current attention span, I don't have a specific number for this, but it's extremely low, especially in 2020. People have to be drawn in quickly, swiftly. So that's why these buzzwords are so important for a lot of the mainstream media, to get your attention, to get it quick, and then get you pissed, or to get you sad, without giving you the full story or give you an unbiased opinion. Racism is disgusting, but we need to respect that it happens in isolated instances. If we try to paint a broad stroke brush against all of America, we lose sight of when it happens, and we take away from the people that are actually victims of it. If and when it happens, especially in a career or with police brutality or something like that, yes, we need to go full force, attack it to try to make sure it doesn't happen again or less frequently. But if we just say the system's racist, what people with white color are privileged, we're basically giving up. We're saying there's no hope. I don't agree with that. When racism happens, and when we can prove that it happens, it's disgusting. I think like I said, we need to go after that. But I think what's just as bad, if not worse, is when we have people like Jussie Smollett and Bubba Wallace, who literally try to exploit racism for attention. That's really what they did. These two were proven to be liars. It's on record of them being liars. It wasn't a noose. Jussie Smollett put the noose around his own neck. He had people paid to help him do this. Where's the outrage with that? Everyone was so quick. When I say everyone, I see mostly people on the left. We're so quick to say, oh, this proves racism is real. This proves, the system is racist. We had to get rid of the Confederate flag in NASCAR, and now there's a noose in his garage. But now we know that was a lie. It wasn't a noose. It was a rope from months before. Why aren't we attacking them more intensely and saying, you two are disgusting for trying to exploit racism? Because yes, racism is real. And when it happens, let's kill it. Let's attack it, excuse me. But when people lie about it, why aren't we going after them? These two are prime examples of trying to exploit your instant gratification to get you to jump on a bandwagon, and then now they're dismissed. It's like people don't even talk about them. Personally, I think defunding the police is idiotic. The money isn't just going to come from removing police off the streets. It's going to take away from their training, their intensive psych backgrounds, their retraining, their ability to see counseling if they have a traumatic experience happen. We need cops. We need good cops. Most people that I've known that are police officers are just good people. They just want to earn a paycheck and get their kids to school or come home and, forget about their day. And then they got to wake up and do it all again. I have a big problem with people like Trevor Noah. In my opinion, he is a schmuck. He is a comedian. That's his title. He's a political, satirical comedian. He's only been here, I think, since 2011 or 2014, but he's very steadfast on his beliefs in how bad America is and how bad policemen are and how bad the system is for everyone. He's making a lot of money in America as a comedian telling us how bad of a country we are. That's a little ironic to me. In one of his Snapchat videos, and yes, I watch them, I want to understand what he's trying to talk about. He said part of the problem with America today is that only 21% of adults in 2019 reported having an interaction with police officers. That's good. That's a low number. So out of that 21%, we're in the decimals of violent interactions with police officers. Now, obviously, any violent interaction is wrong, but to be in the decimals of violent interactions, that's a good sign. That means, as a whole, most people don't even interact with cops because they're usually law-abiding citizens. They're not trying to break the law. They're not trying to be foolish or be buffoons. They're trying just to behave. Get along with their life. Go to work. We look at June 2nd, and it was famous on Instagram as Blackout Tuesday. The problem with that is, although people thought they were doing something positive in honor of silence, what they were really doing was blacking out the internet from Hillary Clinton trying to appeal her trial for her corruption. She'll be in court. She lost her appeal, thankfully. She'll be in court in September. But media had you convinced to put a black square on your Instagram, all of you that did it, to try to show, unity for things like George Floyd or police brutality or silence against it. But Hillary Clinton was in court, and we lost track of that. That affects everyone. What she did was wrong. She ran for office in 2016, and she's now under FBI investigation for her involvement with Benghazi, with Pizzagate. Look into that, Pizzagate. We need to stop using race as an excuse. We need to honestly break down why we're all here. Where I live, there's a lot of culture, a lot of diversity. Where I went to high school, where I went to college part-time, there's a lot of diversity, a lot of cultures. It's beautiful. I love it. I don't look at people as all the same. I think the differences in us makes us all beautiful. But now, if we look at each other and say, because we're different, we're better or we're worse, that's where I have a problem with it. I think we're all equal in opportunity, regardless of color or race or background or gender or whatever, but we shouldn't be focused on that. And we shouldn't use it as an excuse at all. Some of the bigger issues that I have a problem with, and they're finally getting drawn to light, a lot of the people I follow on Instagram have talked about them. It's finally getting on some of the mainstream media, but Bill Gates, in my opinion, is a terrible human being. He wants everyone vaccinated. He definitely has discussed a quantum dot tattoo. You can look that up. He is on board with a vaccination through an RFID chip, which, if you are religious or have read the Bible or any have any awareness of this, it's similar to the mark of the beast. He is not a doctor, yet the majority of society use him as a landline for their medical advice. He's dictating how long people should be on lockdown. He stole his ideas, in my opinion, from Microsoft, and he got wealthy off of it. And now we're letting him dictate how long we're going to be locked down in the vaccination process and all this. We need to look more into that. That's very fishy to me. I said this before, and I'll say it again. Pizzagate is real. Children are trafficked, murdered, raped, molested on a daily basis, not just in America, but in other countries. It's starting to come to light. It's starting to really get surfaced, and that's amazing. It's been happening for a long time, but those are bigger issues. I mean, if you're a parent, I don't care what color you are, and your kid was kidnapped, and then you found out later that your kid was molested or raped or sold or whatever, I know every parent I know would not even want to get the court involved. They would want to take matters in their own hands. These are real things, and when you hear them, don't assume I'm crazy or don't assume it's a conspiracy theory. These are real things. If you look up Pizzagate or Pedogate, you'll find some very disgusting and disturbing things. that's really all I have. I appreciate you watching if you did, tuning in. This is my first video, so forgive the lack of production quality, but I just really wanted to dive into this a little bit. I've got some friends that I've had conversations with, and you know, I can understand that they're upset for certain reasons, but like I said, I think as a society as a whole, we got to take a step back, not just react, really dive into things and be able to have these conversations, you know. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys had a blessed day. Happy 4th of July. Today's the 5th, but hope everyone was